Good morning again, everybody. Welcome back to our virtual classroom. Hope everybody is doing all right. Everybody is staying safe. So what we are going to do today for math. Now, before we get into what our lesson is going to be about, let's go over here to our board. So we're going to be moving on from volume and units, and we are going to be moving over to a new lesson. But before we go over the title of our lesson, let's go ahead and get started here. So I want everybody to look at these 5 words: add, sum, plus, more, all together. When you look at these 5 words, what operation do you think of when you look at these 5 words? They give you a clue of what you're going to do if you're reading a math sentence and you see these words. What does that tell you you're going to do? And what sign are you going to use? When you see these 5 words, that lets you know what we are going to add, which is obvious. That's the first word. But this is a symbol we use when we think of when we see any of these words: add, sum, plus, more, all together. This is a sign that we use, the addition sign. When we look at this sign, what words do you think of when you see this sign? You may think of the word subtract. You may think of minus. What else do you think of? You might think of the difference. What else? Maybe words like fewer. So when you see words like subtract, minus, difference, and fewer in a sentence, that lets us know that the operation we are going to do is we are going to subtract. We're going to use subtraction. So these are the words that are clues to what we're going to what you do if you're reading a number sentence, math sentence. Okay, so let's move on to here. When you see this sign, what words do you think of when you see this sign? What words might be associated with this sign? You may think of words like multiply. That's an easy one. Multiply. What else? You may think of times. You may think of product. You may even think of as much or as many. We'll add as many. So when you are reading a sentence or problem, and you see words like multiply, times, product, as much, or as many, like 3 times as many or 4 times as much, then that lets us know we are going to multiply. And this is a sign we use when we make our multiplication problem. Now, for our last sign, when you see this sign, what words do you think of? You might think of, well, everybody should figure this one out. Divide. You may think of divide. You may think of divided by. You might think of, this is a good one, quotient. So if you're reading a math sentence, you see words like divide, divided by, or quotient, the I. This lets us know we are going to divide, and this is the operation we use. That's the sign we use, and the operation that we're doing is divide. So one more time. When you see words like add, sum, plus, more, all together, that lets us know that our operation is addition. And this is a sign we use when we make our addition problem. When we see words like subtract, minus, difference, fewer, our operation is subtraction, and we use a subtraction sign. When we see words like multiply, times, product, as much, as many, That lets us know that our operation is a multiplication, and we use a multiplication sign. And when we see words like divide, divided by, quotient, that lets us know that our operation is to divide, and that is our division sign. Okay, so we are going to use these words today because we are going to practice changing words into expressions. Now, what do I mean by changing words into expressions? So what that means is we will read some number sentences or math sentences, either one. These sentences contain numbers. They also contain words. These words are going to give us clues to what operation we're going to use, whether we're going to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And then we are going to use that to form our expression. What I mean expression, that means our equation. So basically we're going to read a math sentence and turn it into an equation. So go ahead and get started. So let's get started with our first problem. The sum of 20 and 5. So let's go ahead. We are going to take this sentence, and we're going to take this sentence and we are going to turn it into a expression, or math expression, or a math equation. So how can we turn the sum in 20 and 5 into a math equation? Well, let's go to step number 1. So if we go back to again, if we are trying to turn a words or number sentence into an expression, math sentence into an expression or equation, our step number 1, or strategy number 1, here's our first strategy. We're going to look for keywords. After we do that, then we're going to use or add the amounts involved. So we look for the keywords and then use the amounts involved. So let's go back to our sentence. The sum of 20 and 5. The sum of 20 and 5. Do you see any words in here that gives us a clue of what we're going to do? This would be pretty easy. When I look back at our chart, I see the word sum, just like I do in here. So since we have the word sum, when we see the word sum, what operation are we going to do? We are going to add, and what symbol we're going to use? We are going to use our plus sign. The sum of what? What two numbers are we adding? The sum of 20 and 5. So this is our problem. The sum of 20 and 5. So everybody see what we just did? We have our words, our math sentence, and then we have our expression or equation. So this represents this problem, the sum of 20 and 5, or 20 plus 5. Now let's go to number 2. Multiply 7 and 14. This one is actually pretty easy. What clue or key word do you see? Multiply 7 and 14. I see the word multiply, just like I do here on this chart. So let's analyze multiply. When we multiply, what sign we're going to use? We are going to use the multiplication sign. Okay, so there we go. What two numbers are we multiplying? 7 and 14. So there we go. 7 times 14. So we can say multiply 7 and 14 is the same as 7 times 14. Okay, so now we're going to change it up. Now, we're going to come back to changing words to expressions a little later. But now we're going to switch it up. We're going to turn it around. Now, we're going to change expressions to words. So what do you mean we're going to change expressions to words? So basically, we are going to take a equation, and we're going to turn it into words, and we're going to take an equation and turn it into a math sentence. That's what we're going to do. You're going to use this same thing. We're going to use this list of words to help us out. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to use these words to help us make our sentence. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to look at a math sentence, an equation, and we're going to write a math sentence for our problem. So before we do, there's a few words that we are going to take out. We're going to get rid of plus. We don't need plus. We are going to take away minus. We're going to take away times. And we're going to take away divided by. Why is kind of like because you're taking those words. It's pretty much these words I've taken away pretty much matches up the symbol. Okay, so if I say like plus, that's same as signal, that same as our symbol. So we're going to take those away for a minute. Okay, let's go to our first problem. 12 times 4. So let's go ahead and take 12 times 4. And we are going to turn it into a multiplication sentence. So we got 12 times 4. Before we do, let me show you what strategy number 2 is. So we're going to turn an expression or an equation into words, or turn it into a sentence. We're going to look for the operation sign. So we're going to look for the plus, the minus, the multiplication, or the division symbol. Then we're going to decide which keywords to add to our math sentence. So this is strategy number 2. So we're going to look at the operation sign first, or operation symbol, and then we're going to use that to help us to figure out which word. So I see 12 times 4. So when I look at 12 times 4, we have our multiplication sign. So let me see, what word do I want to use? I think, let's go back on our chart. Let's go to the multiplication. I think I'm going to use the word multiply. I'm going to multiply what? I'm going to multiply what two numbers? 12 and 4. So multiply 12 and 4. Okay. But I don't think I'm content with this. I'm going to keep this, but I think there's something else I can use because it's kind of easy. So what other words can I use if I see this multiplication sign? I think I'm going to go back to our list. And I think, I got a good one. Let's use the word product. When you take two numbers and you multiply them, you get the product. So we can also write the product. There we go, the product. And I'm looking for, once again, the product is what you get when you multiply the two numbers. So what two numbers am I finding the product of? The product of 12 and 4. So these are the two sentences or words, and that I am going to use to represent 12 times 4. I could say multiply 12 and 4, or I could say the product of 12 and 4. Okay, and everybody see what we just did? We looked at the operation sign and then gave that a clue, we use that as a clue as to what words that we can use. So let's go on to number 4. Okay, 39 minus 14. 39 minus 14. What symbol do we see? We see the subtraction sign. What word do I want to use to help me make our multiplication sentence? Let's go over and look. What do I want to use? I think I want to start with the word subtract. So we're going to say subtract. Now, I'm going to subtract what? Now, Could I write subtract 39 and 14? Here's a problem. When I'm subtracting, I'm taking away. So when you look at this, I'm taking away when it says subtract. So when I look at 39 minus 14, I'm taking away what? Am I taking away 39 or I'm taking away 14? I got a group of 39, but if it says minus 14, I'm taking away 14. I'm subtracting 14. So if I start with the word subtract, I'm going to write subtract 14 from, what am I taking this 14 from? I'm taking away from 39. Oops, that's all right. So I could say 39 minus 14, or I could say subtract 14 from 39. Why? Because I'm taking this 14 away from that 39. So I wouldn't say subtract 39 from 14. I would say subtract 14 from 39. But you know what? I think there's another sentence I can write. Let's go back on our list. Let's go back to the subtraction sign, the minus sign. You know what? I don't think I want to use fewer. I think that's maybe some of you are doing like problem solving. I think I'm going to use difference. Let's try the difference. So when I use the word difference, I am comparing two things. So since I am comparing two things, I am going to say the difference between. The difference between what? What two numbers are we comparing? 39 and 14. So we can say the difference between 39 and 14. And it doesn't matter. I can put 39 in the front because we're just comparing. So did everybody see what we just did? These two mathematical sentences represent 39 minus 14. I could say subtract 14 from 39, or the difference between 39 and 14, and we use the words on the list to help us decide what sentence we're going to write. All right, so let's go to number 5. 84 divided by 4. Okay, what sign do we see? We see the division sign. So since we see the division sign, let's go over to the division chart. Let's see what words are under the division. Now, I can't use divided by because that's the same as a symbol. Could use divide, but you know what? I think today we're going to use the word quotient. So for number 5, let's write the quotient of what? And what is the quotient? The quotient is when you take a number and it's divided, whatever groups you divide it into after you finish, that is your quotient. So whatever your answer is from a division problem, that is the quotient. So the quotient of what? The quotient of 84 and 4. So the quotient, once again, is just pretty much the answer. Simply, it's just an answer to a division problem. So I could say 84 divided by 4, or I could say the quotient of 84 and 4. Okay. So now we're going to move into something a little bit more complicated. So here's what we're going to do. Let's first, before we do, we're going to switch up again. Give me a minute while I move this sign. Now, for a moment, let's go back to changing words to expressions. So we're going to flip back again. We're going to take number sentence, and we're going to convert it into an equation. So, or math sentence. Let's see what this says. Number 6. Add 12 to 2. Then multiply the sum by 6. When you look at this problem, what do you notice? You notice that there are two operations you have to do. And there are two sentences. First, it asks us to add 12 to 2. Then we multiply the sum by 6. So pretty much here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the same thing we did with number 1 and number 2. Let's go back to strategy number 1. We're going to look for the keywords and then use the amounts involved. But here's the difference. We're going to start, since there are two sentences, we're going to start with the first one. So what does number 6 say? Add 12 to 2. Add 12 to 2. What key word do you see? What do you see? Matter of fact, underline all of this so we will know where we're focusing on right now. Add 12 to 2. What key word do we see? I see the word add. And when you see the word add, that lets us know we're going to do what? What sign are we going to use when we see the word add? Real easy. Use our plus sign. And what are we adding? We're adding 12 to 2. So it's 12 plus 2. Okay. Now, this 12 plus 2 represents the sentence add 12 to 2. Now, let's go to the second part of our sentence, of our number math sentence. Then multiply the sum by 6. Multiply the sum by 6. Okay. So, what key word do you see? Matter of fact, let's start from here. Then multiply. Then multiply to what? Multiply the sum. Okay, first of all, what it's asking us to do? It's asking us to multiply. But it's asking us to we see multiply, but it's asking us to multiply what? It's asking us to multiply the sum. The sum, what is the sum? The sum is when you take, is the answer to an addition problem. So the sum of what? Is it the sum of this? Multiply the sum. Let's go ahead and put this around here. Put that around, put these parentheses. Because it wants us to multiply the sum of 12 and 2. And what are we doing? Once again, when we are multiplying. Then multiply the sum by what? What are we multiplying by? We are multiplying the sum by 6. There we go. So this number sentence right here represents what we have. We can say add 12 to 2, then multiply the sum by 6. Or we can say 12 plus 2 times 6. Now let's go on to number 7. Okay. Multiply 11 by 6. Then subtract the product by 3. So what is the first thing we're going to do? We are going to look at the first sentence. As we look at the first sentence, we're going to look for keywords that let us know what operation we're going to use. Okay, multiply 11 by 6. Multiply 11 by 6. Up, that's real easy. I see multiply. Multiply what? Multiply 11 by 6. So it's 11 times 6. Okay. Now, this is part 1. And since this has a second part, let's just go ahead and pull out parentheses around earlier. Because when I finish, okay, just like it wasn't finishing number 6. Now, let's look at part 2, the second part. Then subtract the product by 3. Then subtract the product. What is the product? The product is the answer when you multiply two numbers. So this, whatever we get here, that's our product. But what does it want us to do with the product? It wants us to subtract. So 11 times 6, minus what? Subtract the product by 3. 11 times 6 minus 3. So there we go. We can say multiply 11 by 6, then subtract the product by 3, or we can say 11 times 6 minus 3. Okay, now we're going to do 2 more, then we're going to go over tonight's assignment. Listen very closely to these last 2, because you will need this to help you with our assignment. So we are going to switch it once again, change our expression to words. So now we're going to flip back. We're going to take we're going to take an equation and we're going to turn it into a mathematical sentence. So let's go back to strategy 2. If we are going to turn turn an equation to a mathematical sentence, we look for the operation sign. Then we're going to decide what keywords to add to our math sentence. So let's go to number 8. Now, here we go. 6 times 5 divided by 3. We got to make a sentence for 6 times 5 divided by 3. How are we going to look at that? How are we going to do this? Well, we're going to do something similar to what we did to number 6 and 7. Let's look at the first part, or let's look at the part that's in parentheses first. Matter of fact, I think it's best to look at do the ones in parentheses first. Okay, so 6 times 5. Let's look at 6 times 5. Now, what we're going to do is this. Since we're making since we are using words this time, let's look at our symbol. What symbol do you see? We see the multiplication sign. What word do I want to use for the multiplication sign? Let's go back and look at our chart. I think I am going to use multiply again. So let's write multiply 6. What are we multiplying? 6 and 5. So we're going to say multiply 6 by 5. So we're finished with the first part. Multiply 6 by 5 represents 6 times 5. Okay. Now let's go to the second part. We got 6 times 5 divided by 3. Okay. Dividing by 3. So I'm sorry. So what are we doing with these? What are we doing with this? We're going to divide it by 3. Divide it by 3. What symbol do we see? We're seeing the division sign. What word do I want to use if I see that division sign? Let's go back. Let's see. Do I want to use divide or do I want to use quotient? What makes more sense? I think for today, I'm going to use divide. So let's write divide. Divide what? Well, I'll give you a hint. What are we dividing? Of course, we're dividing 6 times 5. But what do you call the answer to a multiplication problem? We talked about it earlier. What do you call the answer to a multiplication problem? The answer to an addition problem is the sum. The answer to a division problem is a quotient. But the answer to a multiplication problem is the product. So let's write divide the product. Because when you multiply 6 by 5, you're going to get the product. Divide the product by, what is this all being divided by? This is being divided by 3. So this represents this. 6 times 5 divided by 3. I can also write multiply 6 by 5, divide the product by 3. Okay. Now, we're going to do one more. And pay very close attention because this one you definitely going to need to help you with today's assignment. So, this says multiply the sum of 6 and 4 by 5. multiply the sum of 6 and 4 by 5. Little different from the other ones, right? Because it's saying multiply the sum of 6 and 4 by 5. So here's what we're going to do. We went over our first strategy, which is look for keywords, then use the amounts involved. We went over strategy 2, look for the operation signs, then decide which keywords to add to your math sentence. So for this one, number 9, we're going to have to think a little deeper. Look for clues and inferences, then use the amounts involved. So when I said look for clues and inferences, we're really going to have to read into the problem and look for some clues. Okay. We can even do it step by step. Okay. Multiply the sum of 6 and 4 by 5. So here's how I'm going to do this. Okay. Maybe you have a different way of doing it. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. So let's do this step by step. Multiply the sum in 6 and 4 by 5. Multiply the sum of 6 and 4 by 5. Let's look at the very first thing that it tells us to do. Multiply. So when it says multiply, what sign do I use when I multiply? Use the times sign. Multiply. Multiply the sum of 6 and 4. Okay, so what is this? It's asking us to multiply something. It's saying to multiply what? The sum of 6 and 4. The sum of 6 and 4. The sum of 6 and 4. So it's telling us to multiply another part. Let's put this part over here. So since it's asking us to multiply another part, let's put this parentheses right here. What's going to go inside here? The sum of 6 and 4. Wait a minute. What's going to go in here? What keyword do you see? I see the sum. That lets us know we're going to do what? We are going to add. And what are we going to add? The sum of 6 and 4. So 6 and 4 is going to go right here. Now, are we finished? Not yet. Multiply the sum of 6 and 4 by what? By 5. So we're multiplying 6 plus 4 by 5. There we go. So this represents this. Multiply the sum of 6 and 4 by 5. And how did I do that again? I looked at the first word. The first word gave me the clue that I'm going to multiply. So I wrote our multiplication or time sign. And what did it say to multiply? The sum of 6 and 4. Since it's let me know I got to multiply a whole nother part, I put this over here. Put it in parentheses because I'm multiplying a separate part. What did it say to multiply? The sum of 6 and 4. It says sum. So what's going to go in here? The addition sign. And what are we going to add? The sum of 6 and 4. So 6 and 4 goes here. So multiply the sum of 6 and 4 by what? By 5. So let me read it one more time. We'll multiply the sum is 6 and 4 by 5. Okay. Let me see. Is there another way we could do it? You can. There are many other ways you can do it. This is Mr. Johnson's way. So, let's see. I think that is going to do it for today. So, let's go ahead and go over our work for tonight. Oh, and before we do, let's do a review. So what words give us clues and what operation we can use? We see words like add, sum, more, all together. You're going to use your plus sign. That means you're going to use your addition operation. If we see subtract, difference, fewer, that lets us know we're going to subtract. If we see multiply product as much as many, that lets us know we're going to multiply, use a times sign. If we see divide, quotient, that lets us know we're going to use a division sign. Now you probably ask Mr. Johnson, why are you not taking these labels away? The reason I'm keeping these labels on, because for your assignment, the words that I am covering, you will not use those words. So when you do your assignment, you will not use the word plus. You will not use the word minus. You will not use the word times. And you will not use the word divided by. Okay, so on your assignment today, I do not want to see those 4 words. Any word that I have not covered up, you can use that today for your assignment. And this assignment that I'm going to show you will be due on Friday. Okay, so let's go over it. So your assignment tonight, let's make this a little bit bigger if we can. It's too big. There we go. Okay. Words and expressions. This is your assignment tonight. So there are 2 pages, 2 parts. Here's part 1. Now, if you look on one side, you have your words. And on the other side, you have your expressions or your equations. So let's look very closely. So this says add 7 and 14. Subtract 1.5 from the sum. You are going to write an expression for this right here where you see the stars. And wherever you see the stars, that means you got to put an answer. So you're going to write the answer for this using this. For the second row, you see 16. Oops. You see 16 divided by 4. What number sentence will you write to represent 16 divided by 4? It's the same thing. This one says add 7 and 14 and then multiply the result by 4. You are going to write an expression or equation for this sentence on this space. And let's go to the next one. It says 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. You are going to write a number sentence using this. And you're going to do the same thing going down, okay? If you see the missing expression or equation, use the word section or the sentences to fill it out. If you see an expression, but you see missing words, you are going to make up your own word sentence, okay? And then after you do part 1, you're going to go to the second page and do part 2. For part 2, there are 2 problems, and listen very carefully. I'll get to that in a minute. So read the problem. As you read the problem and look at the details that are in the problem. So let's go over part 2. Look at the details. It's about a video game. After you do that, write an expression for the number of points Eric has at the end of the game. So for this space, you are going to write your expression, okay? In other words, you're going to write an equation to represent this problem. Now, listen very carefully. After you write the equation, after you write down the plus, minus, division sign or whatever, or parentheses, listen, you do not have to solve it, okay? Unless you want to. If you want to solve it, that's fine, okay? You don't have to solve it. Now, for number 2, read the problem, see this expression or this equation. Describe a sequence of events that might have led to Layla earning the score. So pretty much what you're going to do is you're going to do the reverse, just like we've done in the lesson. You are going to look at this number sentence and you are going to write an expression. Write word sentences for this expression or equation. So this one looks like you might have to write 2 or 3 sentences. Okay, one sentence ain't going to be enough. You're going to probably have to write 2 or 3 sentences. Okay, so be creative. Totally up to you how you want to word it. So this is what you are going to be doing for tonight. Once again, this is due Friday. If you have any questions, reach me on Google. Send me a message on Google Classroom or Class Dojo. I hope everybody understood the lesson. Play the lesson back if you get stuck. Don't forget the video also has the words that we use to create the expression. So when you're creating the sentence to represent the expression, use the words that we gone over on the board. Okay, except the ones that I covered up, but the ones that I didn't cover up, you can use those. So once again, hope everybody understood the lesson, and I will talk to you all next Monday, and you all have a good day and stay safe.